And thank you, Anna, Jeffrey, and Formulated By for putting this whole conference together. And I'm excited to be here because this is a really interesting topic. When you combine data science with business knowledge, and out comes something spectacular. So today we're going to talk about three things. First, we have this guy, XAVIER KOCHHAR, who started the Video Genome project and ultimately sold it to HULU in the face of a massive bidding war. So he's going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how, in this world today, people with data science background have a seat at the table at the C-suite, and how data and business work together at the highest and most effective level. And that's a really interesting topic and something I'm super excited about. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about the entertainment business, and wow, everybody heard about Fox and Disney's acquired them. They announced it this morning. And so there's a few old power players left. You know, you've got the AT&T Time Warner merger sitting over here. You have, obviously, Fox Disney, or Disney Fox over here. You've got Comcast, NBC, Universal. And then, of course, you've got the new media companies nipping at their heels. Netflix, Amazon, Google, Facebook. So it's a wild, wild world today in media. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then we'll have some questions if you have them, and we'll spend a little time on that. My background, just very quick, I started off as a lawyer, sports marketer, an agent for some big celebrities and athletes. And I sort of became passionate about converting celebrity to brand equity or institutional equity. And sort of did this with a guy named Shaquille O'Neal. Has anybody heard of Shaq? Okay, I've done my job. Thank you very much. Anyway, so I created the Shaq brand. And there's another guy I worked with quite closely named Oscar De La Hoya. And with Oscar, we created the Golden Boy brand. Are you familiar with Golden Boy? The largest boxing promotion company in the world right now. And I became passionate about technology, and actually Shaq is too. Shaq was the first, I think, athlete to have a million Twitter followers, and he's really proficient in technology. In 2000, we got together with some people in Silicon Valley, people you probably heard of, Larry Ellison and Mark Andreessen, and his partner Ben Horowitz and Ron Conway, the godfather of Silicon Valley, and we said, we would love to build a campus, a place where you could build digital businesses and have everything you needed in order to do that. You think of it as an incubator for sports and entertainment businesses. We did that in the year 2000. We raised about $100 million, and this was the kind of place that launched the first direct-to-consumer shoe business called Dunk. And we started launching the first direct-to-consumer celebrity business. We had remember Pamela Anderson? Everybody remember that name, Pamela? Okay. We held all of our interactive rights. So we launched Pam TV, and we're going to go direct-to-consumer. It's sort of like yesterday's, Kim Kardashian, right? And then we launched, music businesses and ticketing businesses. And within 9 months of launching all this, the bubble burst, and the venture capitalists wanted all their money back because we were not going to be profitable that year. So we had to close it down. That was kind of a disappointing thing. I did a few other things, but ultimately ended up being the CMO and president of Skechers Performance Division. And the founder of the company, Robert Greenberg, my good friend and former client, said to me, we're a lifestyle company. Is there any way that you can extend our trust with consumers to become a performance company? And we want to get higher margins for our products because technology is function and you can charge more for those products. But he said, I don't think there's any way anyone would wear Skechers on a running or training shoe. And I said, well, why don't we look to technology to tell us that? Let's ask consumers what they think. So we started to ask consumers, would you extend your trust with Skechers? And I was thinking in the back of my mind, Hyundai. Remember Hyundai was the junk Korean car and nobody wanted them and they were cheap? And then all of a sudden they started doing luxury cars. They launched Kia, and then you see LeBron James driving around in a Kia. So I started thinking, maybe we could extend the trust. Maybe we can do that. And what we got back from consumers was, You got to walk before you run. So we developed this business called Shape-Ups. Does anybody remember Shape-Ups? Okay, you wore them because let's say you probably have a really good butt. Turn around, you can see it. Just kidding. That's what Shape-Ups does. It shapes up your butt. And we hired Kim Kardashian to be our spokesperson. We launched a Super Bowl commercial, and we sold 25 million pairs of Shape-Ups, a functional walking shoe. From that technology, the rocker bottom technology, we migrated it into running. We hired a very credible runner to be our spokesperson. And lo and behold, I know you have all seen people wearing Skechers running shoes. How many of you have ever seen a Skechers running shoe? Let me see. See? So we were successful. We ended up with probably $1.5 billion to $2 billion business on the functional side of the company. And Skechers is a $5+ billion company today. So that's just an example. Today I'm really interested in sports and going direct to consumer. I created, it's on my bio here that I'm the CEO of the AVP Pro Beach Volleyball Tour, but actually I'm not. I founded the AVP Pro Beach Volleyball Tour. Currently working on a direct-to-consumer volleyball business, and here's why. Volleyball to me is a really underserved sport that's very popular. There are more girls and women that play volleyball than any other sport. So it's a #1 sport among girls and women. It's very fragmented, it's underserved, and we just created a partnership with ESPN to do certain linear and digital broadcasting of the sport of volleyball. And by the way, does anybody in here like volleyball? Anybody? Okay, so come see me afterwards, because think about how you can apply that passion and knowledge to building a business that goes direct to consumer, because there's a big opportunity there. Now, let's talk about why we're here. We're here to interview a guy who has done some great things. His name's XAVIER KOCHHAR. I'm going to bring him up in a second, but let me tell you a few things about him. #1, full disclosure, he's a friend, so I'm going to give him a bunch of softball questions. I'm not going to ask you any about those, things that you want to keep secret. So it's all going to be easy and nice and breezy. So that's #1. #2, he comes from the entertainment consulting operations business. So his background is at Disney Strategy. His background is at William Morris Consulting. And then he was head of operations for some startups, including, one that had a very successful exit, MediaLink. But he also started this company called Video Genome Project, and he decided that he wanted to make that jump from business to technology. And he did that very successfully and used his business skills, his business intuition to inform important decisions. So XAVIER built the company from scratch, and then last summer, in the face of a bidding war, sold it to HULU. So without further ado, I want to bring up XAVIER KOCHHAR. Give him a warm welcome, please.
Thanks, man. It's nice thing you to say.
So XAVIER, I got to ask you a few questions here. If you don't mind, sit down. No, I'm going to sit next to you over here. Okay. So how and why did you go from being this successful entertainment executive to a nerd, a technology nerd? What happened?
I was always a nerd. I was just a nerd that wore suits. Well, really, I didn't seek out to be in the data business. I sought out to just have a better. Really, back then I didn't even call it a user experience. I just couldn't find a movie on all my services, and it just really bothered me. But because of the relationships that I had built over the years, I asked everybody, hey, why does this problem exist? Why is what we know of now as the curation experience, or really the UX for video content consumption, why does it suck? So this is about 5 years ago. And I just got like a weak sauce answer. I just got an answer that was, the data doesn't exist. That a lot of the underlying metadata on video, which, as most of us know, I don't know how many people are in the video business here, but curation and the curation tools like recommendation engines feed into are fed by underlying metadata. And so people just said there isn't rich metadata. And I just didn't believe it. I didn't believe it because I just thought we know so much about video because we talk. Like we're friends and we talk about what shows we like and movies we watched. and we always did. We've shared concepts and ideas and really like metadata for thousands of years, ever since humans could communicate. But the difference in the last, let's say, 15 years, is that all of that metadata exchange does no longer just happens over a water cooler or at small get-togethers. It also happens there, but now it's being recorded. Now it's being recorded through digital platforms. And so I thought, actually the metadata is there. And then I explored into why we couldn't get it.
So that's interesting. Video Genome Project grew very quickly and pulled all this metadata together, but it had never been done before. Why do you think that it was just sitting out there and nobody had taken enough interest in it to do what you did?
I think because, to be honest, I think because other people were smarter than me. And you have to be almost a little naive to something, right? Because there are more people, when there's an established way of doing things, people become an expert at that thing. Think about what we study. We study what we know. And so if you approach a problem, they say like with fresh eyes or something like that, but I'm not sure. There are plenty of technologists that have grown up as devs. I mean, I do a little dev, like I sort of taught myself how to do some development work, but when you've grown up in a certain way, you're kind of boxed in by that way that you've thought. And because I approached literally every data scientist, every developer, every data aggregator that I spoke to, I was not kind of saddled with the, or shackled with the kind of the legacy way of doing things. So I always said, why can't we do it like that? And they'd give me reason, and I said, nah, that doesn't sound right to me. And so, because I had a little bit of, clout, so I would just tell people, okay, let's do it that way. And even though it's never going to work, and the never going to work part, like, yeah, often it doesn't work, but sometimes it does work. And the couple of times that it does work is where you see like massive breakthroughs, And, you see this with a lot of, I think a lot of the greatest innovators actually learn from one space and apply that learning to a completely different space, because they approach it in a way that kind of the other people that came from that space may not have approached it. So I think maybe that's why.
Yeah, we'll talk about the process, because there's a whole big concept of harvesting metadata, but harvesting alone is not enough, and that's not going to get you anywhere. So talk about the process of identifying what you want to harvest, harvesting it, and then putting it in forms that are going to help drive key relevant business decisions.
So it started, to be honest, it started with, where is there more relevant information about video that is based on that kind of matches into who we are, right? So typically, historically, in video content metadata, there's the technical metadata, right? Like the HDSD and like all the technical aspects, which we're very familiar with. And then there's the historical content metadata, and that kind of metadata is stuff like title, cast, crew, like that genre. What's crazy is when I did some, years ago when I did some work on why do we even categorize metadata like this? Where did this come from? You know where it came from? Like 50 years ago, there was a guy that just was like, I don't know, is this how we should do it? And then just like started going cast, runtime, release date, etc. And then because honestly, this space, like I'm so happy that like you're here, a guy like you is here, and I'm so happy like this. You guys know. Well, some of you guys are young, so you don't know, but some of you guys I see are older, but so you probably do know. Do you remember when like the data people, like they didn't know the difference between the data people and the data entry people, and like and difference between data entry people and like the interns? Like this was such a bottom of the like a field, and so no one really gave it much credit, because really the only thing you actually needed video metadata for is for the delivery guys in the TV uplink station so they knew where to slot things. 30, 40 years ago, there was no recommendation engine. There was no direct to consumer. There was no reason why we needed to care that this is a story about a father and son, or this is something that's relevant if you've just gone through a death in the family, or this is, you may think you like sci-fi, but you don't really like sci-fi. What you like is this, like a family drama, and it's just set and packaged in sci-fi, and that's who we are. But for such a long time, we have been told by literally a small group of people, men by the way, that said, this is how you should think about how you like video or how you approach video. It just didn't seem right to me.
Well, it's really interesting. I mean, you brought up a great point, and that is the computer scientists used to be at the bottom of the barrel. Now they're at the top of the barrel because it's the most coveted, high-growth job sector in all of the job market. So that must be comforting for everyone in this room. You must feel good about that. Obviously, you and other people like you, Xavier, have played a big role in that because people realize how important. And I sort of started this conversation off by saying, now at the C-suite level, you got a seat at the table. Whereas before, as Xavier said, you were down there with the intern. So it's a whole new world. And I think the real key is how to identify, harvest, and apply that data effectively. Because I think there was a Harvard study that said, got a bunch of computer scientists together and said, okay, tell us one business case where the data that you mined turned into a successful project. And you know how many people raised their hand? 0. So, that's the challenge and that's the opportunity that exists right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, I know when I left to my previous company to start this company, nobody in kind of my old world, they were just like, "What are you doing? Like why are you what are you doing? This like metadata? Like even in the world of data science, I'll bet the data scientists here, even like sadly, you guys know there's like classes and like people look down upon like if you're like in everything. And metadata was even like below data scientists would look down on metadata people. Like and so like I literally went from like you said, like C-suite to let me go and like clean up like cast crew runtime release date, and people thought, why are you doing that? And for a long time, Leonard, I'll tell you, I would take the meetings with a lot of people that you and I both know, studio execs, the CEOs of the media companies, and they would kind of go, they go, oh, that's really cute that you're doing that. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And I said, no, I'm here to like incorporate this with what you're doing. And they said, yeah, yeah, sure, So this is well before there was a General Assembly, or well before we taught all these classes. So, but I do think that, I mean, as we'll talk about a little later, I'm sure that it's not even that you can't escape it. It is the C-suite. I don't have children, but if I had children, I would say, I'd encourage them to do whatever they want to do, but I'd kind of lean them towards being understanding data and knowing what to do with it.
That's because you want them to be gainfully employed when they grow up.
Yeah, well, because I want them to be able to take care of me when I'm old.
Yes. Hey, let's talk about something that was really important to you at the very beginning, and I don't want to use this word, because it's been overused, but personalization. Yeah. And how that really was part of the DNA of Video Genome Project, and how that sort of, took root and evolved.
So, like I saw this happen in so many other aspects of our life. Like as an example, like when you're hungry and you're with your friends or your family, and go, hey, where do you want to eat? And you know how it's like sometimes it's like you love Chinese food or you love Italian food, and someone says, oh, let's go to that restaurant. And you go, it's not, I don't like it. No, it's not. We're like, what? But you like Chinese food. And there's like other things about it, right? This happens to me a lot because depending on what kind of mood I'm in, like if I'm doing like a if I want to talk, at lunch or dinner, even if the food is phenomenal, I kind of hate those little, the places where the table's right next to you and you're talking, but you can hear them and all that, right? And so what you kind of find is that that's another aspect of, it's another metadata aspect, right? So it's not just cuisine type, but it's something else. And for me, that index is pretty high. So the kind of the feeling of, the feeling of, I don't know, booths or where you can kind of be, more I don't know how to even describe it. Well, intimate without
Private.
being super crowded, right? And that's important to me. So and there's other things like that that are really important to me. And in the space of video, when I come home after a very long day and I am exhausted, my brain is fried, I kind of don't want to watch, even if it's phenomenal, I don't want to watch This Is Us. I love This Is Us, but I don't want to watch This Is Us because, oh my God, that just makes me cry, And I want to watch something light. So does that mean comedy? Probably, but not necessarily. And so I wanted to take those aspects of who we are individually, when we are, so what time of day, what kind of mood we're in, who else is in the room with us, what else happened to us, what else is going on in the world. If our president does something, maybe that is something that's important to us. But all of these things index at different levels depending on who we are. And I wanted a system to take account for that. Because, and I knew it could happen. And the reason I knew it could happen is because we do it to each other. Like your best friend or your wife or your husband or your mom or your dad or your kids kind of go, oh, you know what? Watch this. This is something you might like right now. My kid made it all the way through his Little League playoffs. They made it to the championship game and they lost a heartbreaker. And we had a whole plan to get together for pizza, and now we're just at home, and I don't know. So if you have children, and so you might say, I don't know what to do, and I might say, you know what might be good for you guys, and you might think, oh, watch Rudy, that football movie, but maybe not. Maybe the right thing to do is to watch Moana. But based on who you are and based on what I know about your kid. So personalization was super, super important to me. And I know that I knew that we had the information here, and I knew that it was out there. It was just not structured. It wasn't organized. That's why I think structured data is perhaps I think that's a lot more important. As much as we talk about the importance of algorithms versus data, there's kind of two schools of thought. There's the data school versus the algorithm school. Just to be super, super clear, and I don't always make myself too popular with data scientists. I don't come from the algorithm school. I come from the data school. Better data is always better than better algorithms. Algorithms, in a sense, the more complex the algorithm, the worse your input data is. The simpler the algorithm, the better, and also the more scalable the algorithm can be, and the more parsable it can be. But the reason why algorithms have to be complex is because we deal with crap data, right? And so my focus was to go on the, make the data better, make the input data better. So anyway, so that's the importance of
that's really
personalization.
interesting, and it kind of makes me think about the relationship between business intuition and structured data, and the way that there's that push-pull that exists between the two. I don't know, anybody watch the World Series at all? Anybody watch the World Series? Dodgers lost in the 7th game. Okay, you watched it, right? And you see this pitcher coming in, right? You know why the pitcher's coming in? Because it's all data-driven. He's coming in. And the guy last game just couldn't do it, and you knew intuitively when he walked in he was going to get ripped, right? You knew it. Everybody's going, don't do this guy. No. They didn't use intuition, they used just pure data. And what ended up happening. So talk about the push and pull and how it works and how we can be more effective in that area.
Totally. And I'm actually thinking of this one story that happened at the VGP with myself and my data scientists. but I'll speak broadly about it first. Problem is the two sides. You know, you have the data side, which is like, look, this is what the data suggests. This is what the numbers say, and then you got the business side, which is yeah, whatever. But this is what my brain says, and this is what like my experience and the reps that I have in this business or the reps that I have in this industry suggest. The problem has been thus far. Well, first of all, this side has always been in control, right? So that's why we, as data people, have been relegated to kind of listening to what they say and being kind of a function for them. That's changing, of course, you know, and it's like in the world of sports, of course, like, you know, with this, like all the data analytics and like the Moneyball stuff. Yeah, that's all changing.
How many World Series has Moneyball guy won?
What's that? How many what?
How many World Series has the Moneyball guy won?
Oh, I don't know. Zero. Right.
But
Oh,
he's
right.
done, he's done.
Yeah. But oh, right, Billy Bean, right. But I think it's very, very important that both of these sides, to your point, that both of these sides have to like come together at like from the beginning, right? It's like an architect and a general contractor of a home. That like an architect can come together and design an awesome home and then hand it to the general contractor, and the general contractor go like, all right, that's not going to work. But here's the deal. If the general contractor works for the architect, he won't say that. He'll just try to do it. And there'll be a lot of mistakes along the way. But if it happens the other way, like, look, this is like, you know, why are there two bathrooms together next to the house? The data suggests that with these many people, like in a house, it would be best if you had two bathrooms together. And then like the architect says, I don't care what the data suggests, right? But it's important that both of those positions inform each other from the beginning. Like neither should kind of lead the other. And I think just now it's happening. And I got to tell you, like I not to make a big deal about it, but the fact that he's here is like a great sign because, and by the way, a lot of like chief data scientists now, or even just normal data scientists, not even chief data, they are in the C-suite. They are driving a lot of these decisions and informing a lot of these decisions. To your point about the baseball stuff, yeah, sometimes, you know, like sometimes you over-trust one side versus the other, and there's going to be mistakes. But it is super important. It's super important for all those things to come together, which is why I would say if this group is a little more on the data side, try your best to think about what the architect might want. If you're the general contractors, think about what the architect might want. And I think the other side is doing that. And I think together, I think that's obviously, you know, in the big media space, the companies that I believe have just killed it in the last 10 years, you mentioned them, the FANG companies, those are the ones. Those are the ones. Like Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, they're the ones. They're coming together. You know, is Zuck a data guy or is he a business guy? Yes. You know, and on and on and on, all of them.
I think that's great. And, you know, I'm going to just selfishly, you know, I talked a little bit about a current project, which is direct-to-consumer volleyball business. So, no, and it really relates to what you said, because if we are going to create content, aggregate content for the super fan, how do we know what to do? You know, we have to rely on the kinds of, you know, data and the kind of thinking that really resides in this room, because that will inform us as to what we should be aggregating. That will inform us as to where we should spend our money creating. And if we don't take that into consideration from the beginning, then we're going to make a lot more mistakes. Now, we certainly may have an intuition as to what's right, and that intuition could be accurate. But I think it's a much better business decision if we take both together, and then we'll still make some mistakes. But at the same time, we have a better opportunity to win. I mean, Amazon's a great example. They're probably as good as it gets when it comes to anticipating how to delight consumers. And they make some mistakes. Actually, they make a lot of mistakes, you know, but at the same time, they hit a lot of balls out of the park. So,
and to that point, you know, sometimes I think we get so good at whatever our craft is that we sort of try to impress ourselves, right? obviously, well, I said don't let the blazer fool you. I'm very much a nerd and a video nerd too. And it totally reminds me of that line from Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park, which is, Ian Malcolm, the mathematician, my favorite character, like one of my favorite characters in all of cinema, which is kind of weird and sad, but where he walks in to those, everyone has seen Jurassic Park? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So he walks into the lab where they're like working on the embryos and and like everyone is fascinated by all this and what they're able to do. And the scientists are like, look, we were able to do this, and we were able to splice DNA, and like at one point he stops and he goes, whoa, your scientists spent so much time trying to figure out if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And sometimes by the way, we all make that mistake. I made that mistake at the VGP. The more we got into it, and the faster and the better our algorithms were, and the more sources we found, and the quicker we worked, then it became like, oh yeah, watch this. Like it's like it happens a lot. Like we both play basketball. Like when you play basketball, you go, oh, like look at this new trick I can do. This great trick, and you just kind of do, and you go, when am I ever going to apply that trick in a game? Never, right? And so sometimes I think like we need to just kind of keep that in mind. And it's tough because particularly if we have bosses, which all of us have bosses, even if we're the boss, we have bosses, trust me, right? And if we have bosses, usually the bosses are in our vertical and they go, great, and they say, that's great, could you do the next iteration up, the next thing up? And sometimes that means a faster way or a better way of doing the same, of doing something. So I think it's important to figure out whether or not you should, not just if you can.
All right, to that point, I'm sure there are a lot of folks in the audience that are interested in continuing and growing their career in media and entertainment. Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give them?
I think it's super important to have a liberal education, okay, or a liberal practice. And when I say liberal, I don't mean politically liberal, but you must go deep and be an expert at something, so you at least have a seat at the table, so people will respect you, right? So you can't be like average at a whole bunch of things. There's one thing you need to kill it at. Presumably, this is the thing, or what you guys are finding or have found your thing. But after you're kind of like that, like I'm going to invest most of my energy there, then I think it's very important to continue to take meetings and discussions and understand the rest of the world. Like basically the opposite of what has happened like on our social media platforms, where whatever we think, like we just go deep and deep and deep in that, and we don't have an appreciation for the other sides. I think that's really, really important. If in my career, I think often by accident. By the way, 100%, this is not like, I didn't have a plan for this. 20 years ago or 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, I never thought, when I grow up, I am going to be a structured data guy, right? I never ever thought that. And so I don't want to come across as I know the answers, but I will say almost accidentally, I had to kind of learn about some other thing and some other thing and some other thing and some other thing, and talk to really, really interesting people. And have an open mind. I mean, again, this sounds a little progressive-y, and I don't mean to be political, but have an open mind, and particularly for somebody or some function or some profession that is different than yours. Have an open mind, right? So honestly, part of me was, I fall to it too. When Leonard was talking earlier and I was standing there, part of me was like, this is an Uber sport. He is an Uber sports agent. He's built 3 companies, but not leaning in data, and he's a marketer. And part of me was worried that you guys would go, wait, why is this guy here? He's not the chief data scientist at Netflix. Why is this guy here? And then I thought, well, that's kind of the point of our talk. You should go. I would encourage you guys to go up to him after. What are you gonna learn from me? Go up to him after. I'm one of you guys. So anyway, so that kind of is the advice, because then you're an expert. You're going to be an expert in something he's not. So and then that's where there's connectivity.
That's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. Seriously.
So now, speaking of magic, the Magic Kingdom bought Fox today. So there's a whole new world out there that's really, really interesting, and it's really started to just spiral over the last 6-9 months. You know, Disney bought BAM Tech. You know, they've decided they're going to put all their resources towards direct-to-consumer, but they've got a lot of assets that help fuel that, so they're in a really interesting spot, a really good spot. The new media companies obviously are powerful and smart and are doing this in a really powerful way too. I mean, Amazon is on fire. You know, obviously, you know, Google's an 800-pound gorilla. So it's a really wild, wild world and interesting in the entertainment space. So let's talk for just a minute about that and where it's headed and what role you guys are going to be playing in that. And then we'll open it up to some questions because I think we have a little less than 10 minutes to go.
Disney Fox. I got to tell you, like, this is, for being down in LA, this is probably the biggest deal any of us, I'm not saying there aren't going to be bigger deals coming up, but this is like, it's not like a thing, like, oh, Disney bought a Fox or whatever. This is frigging huge, okay? And like the reverberations will be felt not just by us in the content community or us in the platform community, but like Main Street and internationally. And the reason is because of something you said, and you've brought up a lot, which is DTC, direct to consumer. So entertainment and media content, really before 10 years ago, was never really direct to consumer, right? There was always sort of a, in the value chain, there was always an intermediary. Yeah.
So Netflix.
Yeah, that's changed. That's changed. Now, the intermediary, like the pipes. So the pipes in the TV business were the fiber, the actual pipes, right? And there was just a handful of people who controlled those pipes. And the reason is because it's freaking expensive. Like, people forget, before we all start hating the distributors or the platform companies, it is really, really expensive. So if you lay down billions of dollars and do all these deals with all these municipalities to like go through their real estate, you know, yeah, you kind of want to like get some ROI on that. But there were just a handful of people that could even afford to do that. And so they controlled everything. They controlled what networks we watched. They controlled when we watched, how we watched. And then because really the internet was, quite frankly, it was sort of deregulated, like in the very, very beginning. And I know that, or just happened like a couple hours ago, the FCC just repealed the net neutrality rules, and there are implications there. But now going direct to consumer is so huge because it cuts out a lot of the excess cost, and it allows you to deliver a hyper-personalized experience, which in every other space, and particularly younger people, have been trained to get a hyper-personalized experience in everything. I said the restaurant thing, like think about like just restaurant, like, you know, like part of the reason like sort of us like older folks and Gen X and baby boomers, it's, you know, we go, oh, millennials and all that, right? It's because you guys are used to always getting everything the way you want. And like part of us is just like, hey, we never had that, you know? But like, but now we're gonna have that. And for Disney, like Disney saw that that Netflix was doing it, and they're like, let's do it. And so to your question, when they bought BAM Tech, a lot of people thought, or when they invested in BAM Tech a couple of years ago, you guys know BAM Tech, that underlying, baseball. It's basically a technology platform that allowed for live streaming. Which, by the way, interestingly enough, Major League Baseball just did, because they wanted to get there wasn't a technology that satisfied them, so they developed that one in-house. And everyone's like, they're investing in a technology company. But I gotta tell you, the people at Disney are perhaps, and I'm not just saying this because it's a former company or because we know them or whatever. I mean, perhaps some of the smartest long-term thinkers that I've seen in the media business. Now, whether or not this works, the fact that they're thinking long-term is, to me, like, you can't. At a big company, there's so much, at a small company, I had a small company, 2 small companies, and constantly the board was like, all right, what are you gonna do this quarter? What are you gonna do this quarter? Imagine being able to go, yeah, enough about this quarter. We're gonna think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And the reason why this deal, I think, is so transformational. So they did the BAMTech deal, they had the technology platform, okay? And now they have the technology platform, now they have enough content. And you say, well, Disney has premium content, why do they need this why do they need so much more content? It's because of, ironically, it's because of personalization. So you know why, or at least that's what I think, right? You know why, and I will say everything I say here about this deal is just my opinion. Like I don't speak for anybody else. But when you go to Netflix, you know how you only watch a very, very small portion of the content that's out there? That they have. So at any one time, Netflix may have, there's a Netflix person here, I think, so you can tell me what the latest numbers are, but they have 3,000 to 6,000 titles, or whatever the numbers are now. And at any one time, in a given year, how many titles do you watch? Not that many, right? So why do they need so many? You know why they need so many? Is because generally, we found this out at the VGP, because generally, the amount of content that you watch, like all of us watch, if it's 100%, 20% is kind of like on Netflix, Stranger Things, House of Cards, whatever. We watch that kind of stuff. The 80%, and maybe again, I'd love to talk to the Netflix person, see if these numbers have changed. But the 80% is all that long tail that's mixed up into things. If I have 3 daughters that are under the age of 10, maybe we're watching a lot more children's girl programming. If I'm a single guy that just loves basketball, maybe I'm watching a lot of, Netflix doesn't have sports, but you get my point, right? And so you need enough to populate that middle and long tail. Disney didn't have enough. They had Marvel, they had Lucas, but they didn't have enough. Now with Fox, they're gonna have a ton of content, and now I think they will actually, for a user, they will deliver the value prop that will make a user pay $10 to $15 to $20. This is gonna be huge, huge.
So we were gonna open it up for questions, but I just got the hook sign. The hook sign, but if you want to, is there time for a couple? Yeah, go ahead.
So I think you touched on something very salient just in terms of the cultural piece with when you were talking about metadata and your friends within the traditional media industry saying, what are you doing this thing for? My issue, and I think if anyone's going to take it, it'll be Disney out of the big traditional media companies, because I agree with you. I think that they're executing reasonably well. But how many people in our culture want to go and work for a big media company as opposed to going and working for Netflix or working for Amazon or working for companies where engineering is the central fulcrum of what built them? And the media came as a result of that. So Netflix built amazing supply chain. They put Blockbuster out of business. They increased the aftermarket sales of the media companies. They love them. They celebrate them. Then these nerding engineers go to these big media CEOs and say, hey, we have this thing called streaming. Oh yeah, you helped us with our aftermarket sales and you put a death knell into Blockbuster. Sure, take it, no problem. And they negotiated deals with them that were out of this world. So, and they're fantastic at their execution in terms of their data and their science and their engineering. And from my lens, culturally, that's what's going to be required to make these media companies successful. You need to have a culture of people who are innovative on the data and the engineering side, wanting to come and push that forward with you. It's not simply just a matter of having all of the content. So I would like your response to that.
I think that's changing. I think what okay, so most of you guys don't know me, but if I was running a media company, knowing what I said, would you feel comfortable working for a guy like me, knowing the importance that you guys would not be relegated to something like down here, and I'm nowhere close to being the only one. Okay. As a matter of fact, I will say, the executives that are going to run this at Disney, run this whole direct-to-consumer business, you know what their backgrounds are? Engineering, head of technology, and not just a programming person. So it used to be the case in Hollywood, if you were the person that had all the relationships with writers and producers, you'd be the person. Oh, well, he knows all the showrunners, he knows all the producers. Oh my God, that has so changed. Now, those people, like whoever knows the platform guys and the technology guys and gals, you know, whoever knows those are the people that are on top. The head of strategy at Disney that all of these things are going to roll up to. There is a very, very real possibility that this could be the heir to the Disney empire. Very real possibility. And this person is not a programmer. This person is not a creative. And that is the case for, like, it's changing for all the studios. And there are some that are resisting. There are some that are a little slower. But I'm sorry, this is what's going to be the case. I'm actually really, really excited just to be blunt, my own future, right? Because I'm not a programmer, I'm not a creative, but I could never, ever in my wildest dreams 10, 15 years ago, ever think that I could run one of these companies. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons why I wouldn't want to, but I think it could happen now. So I think because of that, those executives, you know, generationally, those old executives are going away. And it took somebody like Bob Iger, who wasn't one of those old executives, that recognized how important this is, recognized how important data is, how important platform is. And once a leader does that, right, then everyone's like, oh yeah, then we must be doing it too. And this will start having the ripple effect, culturally and professionally.
Well, we're out of time, but I will say something very quickly. I've noticed leadership changes quite a bit in my career. So it used to be, as Xavier said, you know, like back in the Disney days, Michael Eisner, he knew all the creatives, and you know, and then even Bob Iger was from that world. You know, he really was. But you know, you look at like the NBA, for example. David Stern was like George Washington on a horse in front, but Adam Silver is a much different leader. And I think you're seeing different leaders today come to the forefront. And plus now you have entertainment executives. I mean, arguably Jeff Bezos is an entertainment executive because of what they're doing at Amazon. By the way, the guy that runs BAM Tech is from Amazon.
That's right.
So it's a whole new world. I totally agree with what Xavier said. And I think it's exciting because we're seeing a transformation. And then the last thing I want to say is, you know, I'm a little older than most of you guys here, but the one thing that I'm confident will continue to evolve in this business for anyone that's successful is the curiosity to learn, the curiosity to change, and to understand that even though information is doubling every year or two now, you have to be comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, not knowing things, and be willing to change and look at any possibility. So that's it.
All right, thank you.